Welcome to another episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I'm your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for joining us on this episode, whether it is your first episode with us or if you have been with us from the beginning. Thank you for joining us. And we uh, we just have so much going on. Uh, and what we would like to talk about in this particular episode is related. So we talked about a couple episodes that we had put together that we filmed, where we talked about what's called the the citizen circle, where organizations come together to welcome individuals who have uh, been incarcerated. They've done their time, and now they are re-entering society. And we don't condone the actions that they did that got them into that trouble in the first place. But as human beings, uh, we 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 think that we can take two routes. We can just shun those individuals, or we can help in however that may be, how little or how big that may be. In individuals, may not have a birth certificate, and they have to uh, say, well, they need to get a job. Well, they need two forms of identification, and depending on how long they've been incarcerated, maybe that's been misplaced. And there's a myriad of things, and I used to be a little bit blinded by the light, thinking that, oh, well, somebody gets released from prison, that there's resources that they're able to, as easily as one could be. And we know it's not easy, but we also realize that they have done crimes and had to pay for them. Yeah. So on that level, where we talk about true crime, uh, that that tends to be a particularly uh, hot hot topic. Uh, One of the most, if not the most, very close to the top uh, topic or genre for podcasts out there is related to true crime. The trials that are going on. The court TVs of the world that are out there, and in particular, uh, there is a trial that's going on in Dedham, Massachusetts, and it is actually a retrial. And so uh, the first trial was in 2024, and the defendant went to trial, and the jury was unable to reach a verdict, uh, guilty, not guilty. So they had a hung jury, and so the state, or in this case, they call the state the Commonwealth, uh, decided that they wanted to retry this case. And if a person is found not guilty, they can't be retried for the same crimes. You may have heard about that. It's got double jeopardy, the double jeopardy law. Can't be tried for the same law, same crime twice. But since it was a hung jury, it was neither guilty or not guilty. Uh, it was decided by the Commonwealth that they wanted to retry this case. Not all cases are like that that end up in hung juries, but this case is. And the case, if you uh, haven't been cued in by my few-minute intro, it's the Karen Reed murder trial, and this has garnered a lot of attention, uh, both say locally in Massachusetts and Dedham, Massachusetts, uh, here in the United States, and even across the world. There are podcasts, uh, news outlets galore have uh, that have really eaten this case up, and so we're just gonna touch on it as much as we can. And you may say, well, what does this have to do with Voices for Voices? You talk about mental health and trauma. Well, uh, we talked about the citizen circle, and that mental health and trauma going through being incarcerated. That can be there for individuals, and individuals uh, ahead of that, which is where we're at here with the Karen Reed trial or retrial, is so you have the trauma of John O'Keefe, who was uh, found unresponsive in the snow outside of 34 Fairview. Uh, the Commonwealth alleges that Karen Reed's Lexus SUV uh, ran into him and left him to die in the snow. Uh, the defense that's defending Karen Reed alleges that did not happen, that it was not Karen Reed. Karen Reed's Lexus SUV did not strike John O'Keefe and therefore did not leave him injured to die in the snow. Uh, and so it's kind of high level what's going on. And there's supporters on both sides, which is very interesting to the degree that there is. Not that there aren't supporters, but how they've kind of been at the courthouse day in and day out, not only last year in 2024 uh, for the first trial, but here in 2025 for the retrial. Uh, it's really unheard of because usually that doesn't happen, number one, and number two, especially because the victim, John O'Keefe, was a Boston police officer, and so to have for Karen Reed, the defendant, to have the supporters that she does, and giving hugs and interviews and talking and just really creating this huge circus, bringing in an attorney, Alan Jackson from California, uh, to join the case, uh, and here on the retrial, there's actually been an addition to the defense team, and that is one of the jurors who sat on the jury of the first Karen Reed trial, which that's a twist all in itself as well. And, and so that's going on. Uh, it's a long trial. These are trials are a couple days, maybe a week. Uh, lot of experts being called, and there are just so many podcasts, so many people that are making a living really off of this trial and other trials of doing what we're doing, is, talking about it, and then being asked to come on national TV shows and share their expertise. Some have no connection other than they decided to start a podcast and this is the trial, or that they are a podcaster and they talk about all trials, or not all trials, but you get the idea that that this wouldn't be the only trial that would be talked about on those podcasts. Uh, so we take that step back now and we talk about the trauma and the mental health. Uh, so this death of the Boston police officer uh, happened outside the home of another Boston police officer. One of the, well, not one of the lead, the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, uh, has been fired, let go, and he was one of the main witnesses in the first trial last year in 2024. Uh, and up to this point, the prosecution and the defense have not called him. There were some nasty text messages that uh, were read aloud in court for the first trial, and it did not put this lead investigator in a good light at all. Uh, so both sides, the prosecution, or the Commonwealth, and the defense, they're kind of daring each other to call him, uh, and we don't know what will happen, if he'll be called or not. Um, but this lead prosecutor, this lead investigator, uh, for him not to be called or her not to be called, is just very interesting, uh, because you and I would think that the main person who is the lead on the investigation of this particular alleged crime, this death, that they would definitely be called, because they would have, in essence, some of the most information on the particular case. So that's interesting, of in and of itself, as well as it's no longer employed by the police department, uh, and that's where some of the legal gymnastics have been going on, where the Commonwealth is daring the defense to call him to the stand, and vice versa. Uh, so regardless, the trial's going on. So the mental health, the trauma for John O'Keefe's family, having him uh, outside to die in the snow, uh, is very traumatic. To lose anybody close, but especially in that way. So there's that, the mental health of his family going through that trauma. Not to mention now not only one trial, but now into the second trial about what has allegedly taken place or not taken place, that the jury will ultimately make that decision. And so they have to revisit that at certain times, the family. And then you have the family of the defendant, Karen Reed, that's obviously supporting her, that she didn't strike and hit John O'Keefe, and it wasn't her, that the cracked tail light happened at a different time, and uh, that the data from the phones of when the lock screen on John O'Keefe's cell phone, the time and how many seconds, like, you know 12, 34, and 15 seconds, you know to have whatever time that is, the hour, the minutes, and then the seconds. And so there's all kind of experts have been called and will continue to be called till the completion, and then the final arguments, closing arguments that will occur. So there's the mental health of the defendant and her belief that she didn't do what she's being accused of, and then the mental health and the trauma that she has to relive day after day after day. The first trial, then the second trial, the media appearances. There's uh, just so much that uh, any individual would be going through. Just a lot of trauma, just thinking about what happened, and just the mere fact that her boyfriend is no longer living, that he died one way or another, that he's in heaven now. Uh, so she has to live with that and go through that at times. And then her family and then her supporters, uh, which again, to have as many supporters as she does, to be a defendant on trial for allegedly striking a Boston police officer, is really just incredible to to think about. But it's happening. It's what's going on. And again, this is the second trial, so it's the retrial. So all those supporters were there kind of at the beginning last year in 2024, the first trial, and quite a bit are there still. And the Judge Canones, uh, had rulings and rules set in place that uh, there's a certain amount of feet from the courthouse that the supporters have to be at. I don't know if it's 100 feet from the courthouse steps or 200 feet, whatever that amount is. But she felt that there could be some bias, that when jurors go to deliberate, that they could hear supporters from the defendant, Karen Reed, uh, you uh, doing their supporting, with microphones and chanting and with signs, and so in her mind, having a greater buffer zone uh, is more helpful. So there's that's different from the first trial as well. Um, and so yeah, we talked about the mental health of the individual's past, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. We have the mental health of the defendant and her family. We have what we haven't touched on is the mental health and the trauma that basically being relived almost every day, or when it comes up in their mind, are the individuals that have been impacted as well, not just the general public. Uh, but I mentioned that 34 Fairview is where uh, the body of John McKee was found, and so there's the Boston police officer and those living inside the house. Of their claim is that they don't know anything about it. They don't know any people were coming and going. They're celebrating a birthday party. They were out on the town drinking for quite a while, and then took the after party back to their house. Uh, they claimed that they didn't realize until quite a while after that the John Keith was found, that they didn't see the police, see the scene outside their window. Uh, then there was a dog that was involved, and so the defense is the dog has been rehomed, so the dog is no longer living at that residence. The defense had talked heavily in the first trial about how they believed that there was some type of altercation inside of the house after Karen Reed left. She dropped John off, that he went inside and there was some altercation, dog was involved. They show pictures of his arm, and there are individuals believing that it looks like marks of a dog bite, uh, teeth versus uh, tail light of the Lexus. And then there's the other side, and there's been a reconstruction that happened, um, and that's it remains to be seen what impact that'll have on the jury, because this reconstruction happened at such a low speed. I think it was like 3 or 4 miles per hour, where it's come out that in order for certain events to have occurred, that the Lexus had to be backing up because, right, this broken tail light is on the in the back of the Lexus SUV, uh, that Karen Reed would have had to, uh, I think, go maybe 20 or 22 or 23 miles per hour for a sustained period in order to strike John O'Keefe, like the Commonwealth prosecution is saying. And defense has come out against this expert, this reconstructionist, to talk about that. Say this reconstruction was not done at the 20 whatever the amount of miles per hour that the claim that the SUV was going to strike John O'Keefe at, that it wasn't done. And in the reconstruction, they used a human being, and put some paint on the arm, that they believe would show that the tail light could in fact cause potentially cause the those marks on that were on John O'Keefe's arm. Uh, and so the defense is saying, "Hey, you didn't do, the what's come out, the 20 plus miles per hour," and obviously that wouldn't have turned out well for the person. But as we know, with cars and trucks, SUVs, they go through a series of tests, safety tests, and they don't have humans in there. They have, I'm going to say, mannequins, crash test dummies, and so that's where the defense is uh, is thinking. And so there's right, pick a side. There's some we agree on one side and a little bit on the other. Uh, but this case has just been incredible from it struck the interest. Uh, I mean, so much so that just about all the court TV coverage for since the trial, and even since some of the hearings before the trial happened, they spend so much of their time on this particular trial and the lead up to it, and now during it, that they're spending, their their prime time shows, uh, all on in this particular case, and they're giving updates on other trials like the P Diddy, the Diddy, sex trafficking, abuse trial that is going on in a federal courthouse in the state of New York. Uh, and so this episode we talked about a lot, but trauma of individuals can happen. Uh, and so we talked about the family of the deceased. We talked about the family or the individuals that live at the house where this alleged murder. Karen Reed's been tried for murder, so she could in theory go to prison for the rest of her life. Uh, and so then there's the trauma of her going through this ordeal. And then people can pick sides on who they believe, one or the other. Uh, and then we have also the mental health of, we don't really talk about it, but the attorneys as well. I mean, that's their profession, and so that's something that they're used to. But their mental health is something to be thinking about, as, as well as the judge. Uh, so we thank you for joining us on this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. Until next time, I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes, and please be a voice for you. There's somebody in need.